On today's show, the Cavs season's done and the winds of change, speculation about change, it's all here. We're going to dive into the latest news, rumors, and speculation on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarrell. Jake Stevens is always on production. Before we get into today's show, which we're going to start with Donovan Mitchell, then we're going to talk about JB Bickerstaff, and we're going to talk about Darius Garland and a little bit about Jarrett Allen as well in segment 3. Two players, obviously, at the end of the show who seem like they could be on the move this summer. We have some Locked On Cavs news for you, specifically related to myself and Jake Stevens. This is the last week for myself and for Jake Stevens. Evan later this week he can maybe explain what his vision for the show will be, but just
say it now.
All right, well, for me.
We're in a transition era for you, yeah.
Yeah, I am leaving. This has been something I've done since the very beginning of this network. It has been a long time, a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of fun at times. But it's time for me to do something different without me explaining myself, because I don't really feel like I need to. My life has changed in a very drastic way in the last year and a half. And I am very different. Evan knows this. I think Jake knows this. They can attest to this. I think some of the people at Locked On can attest to this as well. So it's time for me to go. Jake, I think, is in a similar place, so we're both going to do other stuff. I am generally stepping back from doing Cap stuff. I'm leaving for the Sword at the end of June as well. If people have read me over there for a long time, that's some news as well. You can still find me at the Just Basketball show for the time being. It's been really cool doing Lockdown and all that stuff. I don't really like making a hubbub about these things. If I had my way, I would probably just Irish goodbye this and dip out the back door, and that's just more of my thing. But yeah, this will be the last week for me Locked On. TBD on exactly when our last episode will be. Probably, it technically could be Wednesday, maybe Friday, depending on how the week shakes out. But this is the last week of Locked On Cavs as you know it. Thanks everyone who listened, tuned in, all of that. Thanks to Jake, thanks to Evan, thanks to Nick Angstedt, to David Locke for the opportunity, to Tony East, to John Corrales, to Sean Woodley, to Brendan Clean, to Wes Goldberg, David, all the great hosts across the network. It's been a great time. It's a great network. The show will be great going forward. And it's been a cool time, but it's time for me to go. And that's it. I feel very awkward talking about myself. So can we talk about the Cavs?
Well, no, I just real quick wanted to thank you. You took a chance on me. God, right before the pandemic really took off, and I tell people, whether it's my therapist or my friends or just anything in between, like, you kind of became my social outlet to the outside world instead of talking to my family about how much I was washing my hands. And I joked with you that I never really wanted to do a podcast, and here we are, God, years later, and it is the end of an era.
I had hair.
Yeah, you had hair. But
yeah,
no, it's just I'm incredibly thankful for something I didn't expect to really last, but also that I made such a good friend along the way. And I think that's what matters most to me is, I mean, God, you're in my wedding, for God's sake. Like, that's what matters most. And yeah, thank you to everyone who listened to us for the many, many late night episodes and sporadic uploads and everything in between. But yeah, I'll talk more about it maybe towards the end of the week of what my vision and maybe hopes and ambitions are going forward. But no, salute to you, man. You've been doing this since the very beginning of the network, and you rightfully have earned your rest.
Yeah, let's talk about the Cavs, because I hate talking about myself. So Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, Donovan Mitchell. It seems like, Evan, he is going to perhaps stay. The reporting that came out, and we want to apologize first that this didn't come out Friday. We had planned to do this episode Friday, had some technical difficulties that kind of bumped it to us recording on Sunday, so that's on us. But the Mitchell situation has kind of evolved to a place where it seems like the Cavs are in a spot where they are going to be able to sign him to an extension. And Evan, that is in some ways not surprising to me, but it does run counter to everything, all the speculation we heard this whole year, everything that mattered this year. It seems like it was everyone wondering where he was going to be next year. But it seems like, whether it's for another year or whether he signs the big money and you have to worry about this in the future, it seems like in the short term, the Cavs are going to keep Donovan Mitchell. And for the Cavs, that's a win, ultimately, I think.
I mean, yeah, this is your most, I want to say, significant free agent since LeBron in 2018, and that obviously carries a lot of weight within of itself, but it was always just a lot of speculation, even from the moment Mitchell arrived. Like, how long is he married to the idea of Cleveland? Just because it's well reported that, it was like Miami, New York, mostly New York was his preferred destination when the Jazz were getting ready to tear everything down, but Cleveland stepped in at the last second when the Knicks walked away and got the guy that they were looking for. And it does create an interesting crossroad for the Cavs because they don't have that firm commitment. They don't have it in ink yet. They don't have the extension slapped down, but they'll likely offer Donovan Mitchell a maximum contract extension the moment that free agency period begins. And I'm sure there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff, but lot of the decisions going forward, the Cavs are, I don't want to say in limbo because it does seem more and more likely that Mitchell will resign, but they do have to kind of operate in this weird in between where they don't have that firm written in ink commitment from Mitchell, but they have to operate with okay, we got somebody to commit to us long term. It's the first time it's happened since LeBron did it in 2016. Or 2017, one of the two, when he signed that 2 year. I think it was 2016. So either way, you now have to operate with the idea of, okay, what can we do to, one, make sure we do get Mitchell to sign, in terms of coaching, personnel, things like that. But the onus is now on the Cavs to build a legitimate contender and I would say title threat around Mitchell, because just being around him, not knowing him personally as a friend or anything like that, but just being around him enough, he's a guy who is kind of fed up with the individual accolades of whether that's all-star appearances or all NBA honors, even though last year was his first year to get it. And that ending up in a second round exit for him, this is the third time it's happened to him this last season. But now, the onus is on the Cavs to build a contender, and they do have to do it without that commitment from Mitchell, which puts them in a little bit of a weird spot, but it's going to create some ripples, and I think it's going to start with coaching.
It's the spot I would want, though, if I'm them, right? Because, I think if I came away from this playoffs thinking anything, it's that guy's a bona fide star, that guy raised his game, that guy is a guy you can win with in a big way, and it's about meeting him at his level. I think that's what this summer is about. It's about, if you can get him to stay, that's option A, and you figure it out. No one else has just met him at the level, and at the level he got to. He obviously got hurt. But, that guy played the Boston series like he thought he could win the Boston series, which is a pretty remarkable thing. And I think he might have been the best player on that floor for parts of that series until his body got compromised. That guy's that good. I think this, if you get him, especially considering all the picks you already gave up, and I don't know what the return for him would be considering, if you don't have leverage, you might be in a weird spot getting assets back. I would rather just go forward if I'm this organization, if I'm the fan base, and ride out whatever this is with Mitchell and see where it goes. And then when the tires come off, the tires come off. But that's the guy that's the proven all-star, all-NBA level guy. No one else on the roster has ever been proven to be as good as this guy. So that to me is the whole thing here. I'll take that guy, even if it causes all these other ripples we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's the whole kit and caboodle. You absolutely, if you got the guy, again, the most significant star to re-up with you since LeBron did it in 2016, and that went sideways, but contracts are funny money. If a player wants out, they can move heaven and earth to make that happen. So, if this partnership doesn't work at any point, Mitchell can easily say, all right, I want out, and then that's when the Cavs have to approach the topic. But at least if you're, assumedly, Kobe Altman's still the president of basketball operations in these coming off-season decisions, there's been, I don't know, there's some bouncing around. Apparently Grant Gilbert has stepped away from the team, but I don't know if that's 100% accurate. But we'll see what these next steps are. But the first big domino for Cleveland was getting Donovan Mitchell to convince. It's something that's kind of been hovering around them and just every team in the league who's kind of waiting to see what Mitchell does. And sure, we don't really know what fully is going to happen until Donovan Mitchell either re-ups or said he's out. But now, like, if you're the Cavs, you can breathe a little bit easier with at least it becoming more and more publicly known that Donovan Mitchell will recommit to the Cavs.
I don't frequent Twitter very much, Evan, as you know. Did enjoy some very insane Donovan Mitchell Twitter likes over the last couple of days.
Oh yeah, man, he is.
The one about like the media trying to drive him out of the city is one of the most like I get like what are we doing? You know?
I mean, I'm looking at his likes now. Like, that's a cool addition to your backyard. Painting the Louisville football field into your backyard. I wonder if that's in Kentucky or in Cleveland, but either way, yeah. The one about the media driving him out of Cleveland is it's always funny to me because people think that I think he may have people
think he did. I think he did take off. I think he did unlike that one. It looks like.
It looks like he unliked online. Oh,
unless, yeah.
Uh-oh, Chris is blocked by Donovan Mitchell.
Oh no, I muted. No, it looks like
no. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. No, it's yeah. It's also tough. Just like the shot of Donovan Mitchell being frustrated the lack of maturity. Like,
yeah.
Listen, that also could be true, but like, you know, if you're able to weaponize the media against fans, it makes, you know, any exit strategy a lot cleaner too. So
I also maybe believe it more when you get mad about it. It's like, please don't print in the newspaper that I was mad, you know?
Yeah. Also, we don't know if frustration is just like competitive nature, stuff like that, but there's a lot of messiness. God, we're days removed from the Cavs season ending now. There's been a lot of messiness that has just matriculated outside of this team that clearly shows that things aren't as keen as they may have appeared on the outside.
All right, after this, let's talk about the coaching part of this, because that's the big one aside from Mitchell. That is probably the most immediate one that hasn't been decided, but we'll get to that after.
Well, today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Let's get straight to the point. When you want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, or pretty much anything standing in the way of you and your financial freedom, you want to explore all that, right? And with Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 financial destination, providing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including a 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and is how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insights to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The #1 financial destination. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. One more time for the folks in the back, that's yahoofinance.com.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like the rapper Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks communities each week. You can test your skills on Prize Picks this season in basketball with the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. You make your picks, submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. It is really simple to play. They also offer weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Prize Picks also now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this basketball season. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, you download the app today, you use our code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. All right, JB Bickerstaff. You were saying Well, Evan. What's your thought on Well?
Well, with Rich Paul working quicker than all of us, the Darius Garland ripple I think could be bigger than the coaching.
Yeah,
one.
but I think the JB
more
one is more immediate.
The more immediate,
yeah,
the more immediate one is JB. Like, this will come out Monday, as everyone knows, and we could have news about JB come out anytime during the week. People have been asking me constantly about exit interviews. It appears the players will not be doing them. They've all gone their separate ways. But Kobe Altman will address the media as his usual end of the year addressing of the media. And we'll probably have a more concrete decision made on Bickerstaff at that point. But it's going to be a full-throated evaluation based on reports and things I've heard too. Like, they're not just going to look at how this year went or the 2 seasons with Mitchell went, but the 5.5 years. But it's been reported by The Athletic, like, Mitchell's not a huge fan of Bickerstaff, although I've heard otherwise. But we'll see. I think
you could tell, Evan. I don't think anyone like hates JB, but I don't think there is like a.
There's a clear frustration. Like Jared Allen,
I think the frustration
firing that shot in the playoffs, about. I don't want to say it was a direct jab at JB. I mean, it could have been, but like the Jamal Mosley praise when the Cavs got shellacked after Donovan Mitchell drops 50 in a possible clinching game, it wasn't a good look. And then you can really parse through the numbers there. And I think there are guys who are frustrated by the inconsistencies in rotations, minutes. I think that's clear. I think conversations I've had, and like you can just kind of read it too. Like, I wrote it this way: like, JB Bickerstaff, I think, is a good coach, but I also just think he has his limitations, and those have come on full display, not just in these 2 years with Mitchell, but like the years when the Cavs were trying to push for the postseason, especially in Evan Mobley's rookie year, where like they start out really hot and then they plateau a little bit and then start to come back down to earth. And injuries wreak havoc on this team right before the postseason, which is, suboptimal. But yeah, I think you really just have to put it all into perspective, and also like maybe you just need a new voice in the locker room as well, just to kind of maybe shock the system a little bit and kind of get this team rolling again.
I think the reporting that we have read so far is that the Cavs view him in real high esteem. That
helps his dad in the front office,
and his dad is like an advisor to the team. I think JB. I think that Richard Jefferson. Made a point recently that he wouldn't get rid of JB. I think you'd find people in the league that would make that case. I mean, I think it's been notable that you haven't heard any other outside names really directly linked. The only one that's really been out there was when Mark Stein mentioned the Cavs as a possible Ty Lue team if Ty were to leave the Clippers. That was a one-off and very, not even like concrete. The Cavs are pursuing Ty Lue. It was the Cavs would have interest in Ty Lue if he were to leave. If they were to fire JB, it was like multiple steps of removal.
Yeah, the Clippers had to fire Ty first, and the problem is I think the Lakers wouldn't let Ty leave Los Angeles.
Yeah, or I mean,
point.
yeah. There's like, but even that was like multiple steps. They're being very careful about this. I think the Cavs are not gonna like trash JB on the way out. I think there's a way this could look that they're being optical of. I think when you talk to people, I think there's but I think there's going to be some work done to not make it look like they were out on GB. But I think if you just look at how some of this has come out, I don't think this is. I tend to just trust a lot of what has kind of come out from your Shams, from your Varden and stuff, just because I think if you look at how this went and you just look at how, I also just think you look at that all tracks, and I think if you look at the job JB did, I think you just see like a guy that I think seems to be a really good, at times, like was really good at helping them navigate some really, really tough times organizationally and navigating the post-John Beilein world, but has struggled, I think, with the big adjustments, has struggled with game planning at times, has taken time to really like not be the most modern guy in a lot of ways, and taken time to really have to get like forced to adapt to things that actually work for this team. Some of that's not all on him. I think it is also on the fact that like I know he's a name. I don't think Luke Walton has a great track record as a coach in the league. That's just a when you're lead assistant, that's not exactly helping. I don't know how great this coaching staff overall like really is. But I think a new voice would make a lot of sense. And I think a voice, particularly, Evan, that would like be more dynamic and be more innovative and be more in step with like progressive modern offensive basketball. That's just not JB. He would tell you that too, is the thing. JB would tell you that is not what he's good at. And I don't know exactly who the name would be, that they would pursue? Would it be David Edelman? Would it be a Chris Quinn? Would it be one of these other great offensive assistants out there? There's some risk in that for sure, but I think that would make more sense with the roster you were going to try to build than what you're going to try to build with Mitchell. And I just don't think JB is going to give that. And if this is, in the way the league works, if any of this is true, where like he has lost the locker room in some way, where like they don't have confidence in him and the players have lost him, and I think not just with Mitchell, but with something like that, I do, from my understanding, think some of that is true, then I think you kind of have to. I understand the hesitancy, and I understand if you are trying to build a culture, you don't want to be the team that just changes coaches all the time and all that stuff and the way it looks and all that, but I think you might need to. Like, to me, I think if like Mitchell looks at this and says like, does this have an impact on if Mitchell comes back or not and wants to extend or not, and your ability to move forward with him, that absolutely would impact my decision here. If Mitchell says I will extend, but it's like somewhat in his reluctant, he's like reluctant due to JB's around, I'm probably just like going to get a different coach. I just am. That's unfair, but I am.
Yeah, and you had mentioned some of the guys. I think like other people, like if it's not Adelman, if it's not Chris Quinn or anything, like I don't know, maybe you take a stab at like Alex Jensen or Johnny Bryant. Like Johnny Bryant just has availability now because the Knicks got bounced by the Pacers, but it'll be interesting to see how the Cavs navigate this. But like, yeah, I don't think the Cavs are like looking to kick JB out the door right away. Yeah, they have to like tread lightly and navigate this as carefully as possible. But I think it is a tough, awkward situation. You and I, like Mark Stein, I think more or less, as you had shared with me, noted that like it's kind of like at least in conversations across the league, it's similar to how Frank Vogel's time with the Suns came to an end. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's when, but also like,
yeah, the
Cavs have to be mindful of how they want to navigate this, just because like Woj put it out there, and it's true. Like the coaching market isn't super robust, especially after Budenholzer went to Phoenix, and like, you know, Ime Udoka is with the Rockets and everything. Like, yes, Udoka's a problematic hire, but like there's not a lot of like hot button names that could be options. Like, do you want to pursue the James Borrego route and assume that he is still like a very brilliant offensive mind that was handed a very toxic situation in Charlotte, or do you want to look at a young up and coming assistant and roll the dice on that? And like, that's part of the tricky issue, is like you don't have that firm commitment for Mitchell, but like it's a balancing act. Because you're assuming he is going to re-up with you, but like you want to make sure you hire the right guy, and like, do you want to hand it to a guy who's never has any coaching experience, or do you want to hand it to a retread that may not, you know, inspire a ton of optimism, just in terms of just like what your options are? Like, maybe it's Kenny Atkinson, who knows?
I'm also sure that I'm sure the Cavs fan base would disagree on a lot of different things this summer. The number one thing I think everyone's kind of apathetic towards right now is JB Bickerstaff. That seems to be the universal connector. It's like, I don't think anyone's in love with JB Bickerstaff as head coach right now. I mean, that guy got booed before some games this year. Like, it's tough.
He got booed in the playoffs when he was introduced. Like, the boos went away after Game 7, but I think they came back by Game 4. I don't know, but it's just yeah, it also just like, yeah, I think JB has done a good job. I think he noted it very well. Like, he has, and I'm not like, he's still the head coach of the Cavaliers time being, and as when we're recording this, but he's done a good job building this team into what it is. But also, they just may, like you know, like, there's not a lot of in-game adjustments. There's not a lot of just things that draw a lot of inspiration when things are tight, or like there's just, like, you have to give credit where credit's due. Like, he squeezed a lot of juice out of this Cavs team when they were banged up this year, but also, like, there's a lot of frustrating, head-scratching losses when they were healthier, and it's kind of fully dissected. And I think, you know, doing this slowly and not maybe overreacting, but, like, fully just diving into what you can and can't do with him at coach, like, it's the right way to navigate it. And also, I think, like, you know, just doing right by the guy who has been coaching you for almost 6 years at this point too.
Yeah, problem is, it's also just like the business, and it's like at a certain point,
I agree.
What matters to the franchise is going to matter more than like doing right by the guy. So I think if it was me, I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's time for a change. All right, after this, Darius Garland, could he be on the move as well? That's up after Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. For the finals right now, to win it all, you get the Mavs at plus 600. That's interesting if you want a non-Celtics winner for the title. Boston, by the way, minus 150. Which I think speaks to that they have the easiest path to the title at this point. No disrespect to the Pacers, but I think that's just true. So you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So Darius Garland, as reported in the Athletic from Lloyd Varden and Shams, quote, furthermore, rival executives believe the Cavs will have to similarly evaluate the fit of Mitchell and Garland and ultimately may have to choose one or the other. Should Mitchell decide to stay long-term, sources briefed on the matter say Garland's representation, Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul, would have a conversation with Cavs officials on potentially finding a new home for the one-time All-Star, end quote. Zach Lowe in his show has also said a couple times now that he would be surprised if they ran it back if both those guys were on the roster next season. Evan, I think that's where we're headed here. And I think this summer, Jared Allen should be lumped in this as well. I think he's going to have a lot of suitors. Mark Stein reported that as well in his newsletter on Sunday, the day we're recording this. I think we're headed towards a year next year where it's pretty possible that Garland is gone and somewhere else.
Yeah.
And Allen's gone into somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are being babies about this, saying like, oh, they don't hate each other. And like, no, they don't, they hate each other, but also they just may be frustrated. And I think in Darius's case, he was given the money and the treatment of being the franchise guy, and then the Cavs saw an opportunity to get Donovan Mitchell to improve and, kind of shift their focus to making Mitchell the franchise guy. And I think if you're Darius, after just like a frustrating season this year with injuries and everything else, and also like I think it becoming more and more clear that the Cavs are going to be building this team with a central focus around Donovan Mitchell going forward, like you have to really take everything into perspective. And maybe it's just a lot of your turn, my turn basketball last season, and there's moments that like it just didn't click because of injuries this year, and also just like everything else that was kind of going wrong for the Cavs this season. But I understand why Garland maybe just wants a reset, especially if the Cavs commit financially to Mitchell long term. And also, it's the reality of the situation. If the Cavs get Mitchell to commit long term, the cupboard is bare in terms of assets because you've traded quite a bit to get him. Like, technically speaking, the rookie they draft this summer, they can trade on draft night as long as they don't do the Andrew Wiggins thing where they sign him to a contract and do this weird limbo after that. But after that, like, the Cavs don't have a tradable first-round pick till 2031, I want to say, and I'll be almost 40 then. Donovan Mitchell's extension will be dead and gone by then. But yeah, you have to look at what the assets you have. I think you'd assume Evan Mobley is pretty safe, especially if you want to start doing the whole building shooting around Evan Mobley concept. But like, yeah, Jared Allen is going to be a very attractive asset to a lot of teams who's played very well this season. I think Darius Garland's going to have a ton of intrigue across the league this season. And you're going to get some assets back for these guys. And I just think, like, I jokingly said this, but I do mean it as well. Like, I think, like, the emotional rigmarole that's going to be coming out over the next few days, months, weeks, whatever you want to call it, like, it's going to be tricky. But, yeah, this Cavs team is going to look a lot different by the time next season starts. And you'd assume it's with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley as the two pillars, and then they flesh it out from whatever they get from either player from there.
I think this is pretty simple why this would happen. I don't think these guys have, it's been 2 years. You kind of have a fork in the road here. You have not gotten the best out of each other with those two guys the last 2 years. That's just, I think, the reality. I think it's time for them to do something different. I think that's the reality this has ended up in, unfortunately. Garland's also your big salary to do something with. And then with Allen, it's the same thing. It's like that's a $20 million salary. And I think we just saw at the end of the Celtics series that like Evan Mobley at center is pretty interesting. And I want to see more of it. And he's the center. And it's time to throw him to the deep end. If Chet Holmgren can do it, if Victor Wembanyama can do it, if all these other skinny guys can do it, I think it's time to just throw Mobley to the deep end. I think it's time to, like this summer, Evan, I think if we were going to use one word, I think it's evolution. I think it is Donovan Mitchell plus Evan Mobley plus a new head coach, and let's see where it goes. I think that, to me, that's where I think we're headed here.
Yeah, and you could sit around and say like, oh, these guys needed time to grow and develop and gel and everything else. But again, as I said at the top of the show, if you get Donovan Mitchell to recommit, the most important agent this franchise has had since LeBron frickin' James, the onus is on this organization to start contender right away. You can't wait for these guys to develop much longer, and also like you have to have these uncomfortable conversations where guys you may have deemed untouchable a while back are no longer untouchable, and you have to just pursue the best possible paths for you to make everything possible. And yeah, it might require you breaking up Mitchell and Garland, and also Mobley and Allen, and really leaning into this identity of shooters. And if you have more of a coaching staff that is tailored to an offensive scheme and that identity, I think there is really something you can strike into, but you can't let emotions kind of rule the there.
Yeah. All right, give me predictions. Yes or no? JB Bickerstaff is the head coach of the Cavs next year.
No.
I'm gonna say no. Darius Garland is on the Cavs next year.
No, because I think that I think the clutch thing is real, and they will get him out of there into a different situation ASAP.
Donovan Mitchell signs an extension.
Yes.
Jared Allen's on a different team.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with all those.
Oh,
Let's
one
end
last.
there.
Do you think Evan Mobley signs his a full rookie max extension?
Yeah, I do.
I think so too. I think that.
I do.
Yeah, it'll be Mitchell and Mobley, and the bits and bobbles you get from teams, Garland and Allen, and maybe the bench is completely different too. Maybe Isaac Okoro's another team as well, but who knows?
Yeah. All right, let's end there. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarrell. Back later this week with more Locked On Cavs. Thanks to Jake Stevens as always. Have a great rest of your day.